Hello, and welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast with the science and the screaming to determine what is the single greatest movie of any given year. That given year, this season, is 1984. Orwell was a young lad hoping that Big Brother would take him to the park. The 84 Astros probably played baseball. It was a big year for all of us, but none so much than us right now. My name is Reiner, and I will be your host tonight for this incredible show. Typically, this show is a game show of sorts, where I invite panelists who have seen the movie to come on and yell at each other for points and prizes. They do not know the questions that I'm going to ask. I surprise them, and then they have to go. But, unfortunately, one of our panelists called in sick, so tonight we will do away with the points, probably making this our audience's favorite episode of all time. Tonight, I just have Mike. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I am ready for a hard-hitting interview about my contribution to this film.
Does this seem a little bit more Frost Nixon than normal?
The lights are very serious.
Uh-huh.
The way we're sitting in a way we never do, it feels like we are now antagonists.
Yes. Or like on the $20,000 pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are sitting close together, knees touching.
I hate that $20,000 would change my life.
Yeah, but it's in that pyramid. You got to figure out how to get it in there. Out of there, I guess.
Nope. I got to figure out how to get it in.
So, Greg, sometimes panelist on the show.
Oh, is that who I was supposed to go up against tonight?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
You said that, or he said that he was sick, and you said that his disease was, you wrote it down here on this piece of paper,
Yeah.
from being a butthole.
Yeah.
Is that true? Did he tell you that?
He inferred it.
Uh-huh.
Did I? He implied it. I inferred it.
There you go.
He was sick of being a butthole.
He was sick of being, so is he going to change? Is he going to no longer be one?
I can't tell you the kind of work he should or will do. I can tell you what he should do, actually.
Yes.
The kind of work, the hard-hitting work he should do.
You have told me multiple times what he should do.
But I cannot. He probably should shove his head up that butthole he's sick of being.
Okay.
But I cannot tell you what he will do.
Right.
If I know my good friend of me, Greg, phone it in.
Your friend of me with benefited-me's. Should he at any point, though, just like do some sitting down and listening?
I think he should sit his white ass down and listen to this episode.
And if you missed that, Mike said wide. Correct? Wide ass.
Wide ass.
Yeah. Greg is packing a lot in the kitchen.
He does squats, son.
So, yeah, it's just going to be me and you. And it's crazy because this movie is about, some would say, two brothers in love. And here we are tonight. The movie in question is This Is Spinal Tap.
We've lost our bondage bass player.
Yes. He is at home or stuck in a pod, let's say, which is confusing because now we're in a pod. And
some, our wives would say, we're stuck in here.
We're stuck in here as well. But yeah, like the studio audience isn't here. It's so weird.
It's intimate.
Yes.
How many times can we say intimate before that gets creepy?
17 more. Okay.
We're going to have an intimate conversation.
Okay, but you can't hug them all. Like, we have to bounce back and forth who gets to say intimate.
Well, that's your opinion.
I just used one of mine. I just, right off the bat, Mike, you're not a fan of comedy, you're not a fan of music. Did you hate this movie?
Being neither a fan of the ha-ha hee-hees nor the dilly-dilly-dees, so hard to sit through. Because, let me tell you, Ryan, this movie, on its 40th anniversary today...
Is that true?
Is so full of both jokes and laughter and songs that hold the fudge up.
Yeah, I would say that the music, which we will definitely get to, is so incredibly on point and incredible. But the comedy, I mean, did you sit down? I don't know when the last time you saw this was, and I'm not going to ask. I don't care. But
so it is different than a normal show.
Were you shocked at like how you sit down and watch a movie like this and you're like, it's definitely going to be overrated? The people who quote it suck.
Yes.
So the people quote Caddyshack.
Yes. The people quote it suck. It's from that era. It's old. Anything before... No.
Billy Madison.
2000 to 2010 is rough because homophobia was rampant in comedies. So the 90s and current movies are the only things that we know will hold up joke-wise.
Uh-huh.
And everything else is just like, oh, can this? And only once before have we said, yes, Naked Gun, you are still funny.
And yes, Naked Gun, you're of the caliber of movie for us to do. Because, like, if we're being honest, we talk about how everybody shits on comedy, but like it's hard for comedies to get into this Sweet 16.
Yes.
I think not because they're worse, but because they get dated so quickly.
Right.
And we're sort of trying to see like what stood the test of time.
And I think they should be dated so quickly. It's comedy is a timely art form.
Mm-hmm.
So to make a movie this timeless that both douchebags and librarians can enjoy, I guess we're the librarians in this scenario.
Okay, one of us
is. It was masterful. So many. The intro is always, what do we get into? Everybody just says this amp goes to 11, drummers explode. That's the only thing people seem to remember. Howling at this movie, front to back.
Yeah, I mean, it is maybe a little bit more difficult because of the odd narrative. This is a mock rock doc. I don't want to say that again tonight. So,
and based on their clothes, it's a cock mock rock doc.
Let's just have that be the only time that we say those 4 words in a row like that.
I don't know. I was pretty good at it.
But there's not a lot of that typical narrative that we dive into so much on this show.
Correct.
A lot of the director's flair that we dive into is been taken away because it is
purposefully
like a exact copy of a documentary. This might be a tough one, but you and I are going to do it. Greg is going to be in our thoughts and our prayers because everybody knows neither one of those things.
We don't actually care.
So yeah. And when we come back, this is Spinal Tap. Working together on a skit show called The TV Show, Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, Harry Shearer, and Rob Reiner decided to take a few of the characters, a band called Spinal Tap, and spin it into a movie. The movie was harder to make than they thought. Not only was it hard to raise the money, it was hard to write it. The group realized no script could give off the vibe, the essence, the je ne sais quoi they were looking for. TV superhero Norman Lear swooped in to give them the money. Once that happened, they said, fuck the script, let's do it live, but filmed and edited in natural dialogue. The result, This Is Spinal Tap, was a modest hit in 1984, but has grown into one of the most beloved and oft-quoted movies of all time. Words and phrases like Stonehenge, Goes to 11, Shit Sandwich, None More Black, and Gardening Accident, just to name a few, have helped the movie change both comedy and rock forever. If that sounds hyperbolic to you, then you're a piece of shit. Ultimately, Mike, though, does Spinal Tap, a broad comedy with over-the-top situations, feel like the most truthful movie about rock and roll ever?
It is wild. They, of course, have to be making fun of bands from their era and before, but it is wild.
It's hard to make fun of bands in the future.
But they were.
Yeah, they absolutely did.
And it's so funny reading rock and rollers. I'm very hip. Rock and rollers reactions. People like Steven Tyler, his bandmates were like, he didn't get that it was a comedy at first. Yeah. Like, why are we watching this brutal tragedy?
Steven Tyler ran out of the theater as if a train was coming towards the train.
And how many non-rock and rollers, normies, plebes, are idiots and thought they were just watching a real band.
Yeah.
It's, I guess, droll, so people at the time were fools.
That's true. There wasn't the setup and punchline that you'd think British people would be used to. But these were Americans acting British.
But drummers were literally exploding throughout the movie, so people are jackasses. But yeah, I think it's just they hit the Peter Pan syndrome, the arrogance, the narcissism for when you get down to it doing... I'm not saying they're not talented. Musicians in general, they really are. I always wish I could be one. But you're doing a children's thing. And you legit think you're a god. You're wearing leather pants and nipple clamps.
You're doing the thing that makes children look up to you and want to be you someday, but that means that you're like Yanni or Barney or Sharon, Lois, and Bram. Like, that's the level of entertainment you're potentially giving us.
And again, I'm a big music fan. I'm a fan of music.
Sure.
And Bach, Mozart.
You love all kinds of music, both country and Western.
Yes. Salieri. I couldn't think of a single country artist, but at least I could keep going with my stupid list.
Oh, Sally Ari?
Yeah, Salieri, straight from Kentucky.
Her first album, Sally in Nashville, was amazing.
It was wild. Again, not just comedy shouldn't last, and I know we're going to get to that later, 40 years later, but the parody, which is a close cousin of comedy,
sure.
But like, it's insanity that they nailed it that well.
Two of the movies that I thought about a lot in this last week were two of my favorite movies of all time. And so we're going to get to the music later, and we're going to talk about what they've done to bands. But just like bringing the truth of a musician, it made me think of Almost Famous.
Yes.
And Boogie Nights, which is not, it's a different type of entertainment, but still the same sort of like relationships and fights. And, if you get this close to people, then things blow up. And
I can't relate to that at all.
You better start relating, or we're going to fucking blow this thing up. I think it might be hard to watch those two of my favorite movies again after this, because there's so much more truthfulness in this broad comedy than those two movies with their big scenes and they're screaming at the pool and they're singing Elton John on the bus, and like that's the kind of corny shit that isn't in this movie.
Is it almost like watching biopic or myopic people called biopics after Walk Hard?
Exactly.
Like it ruins that genre of film for you a little.
Right. And it's because this movie just said, like, if we keep it calm and keep it real, the documentary style helps, but like that we will show people situations that they have all been that aren't musicians. But if you are a musician, you motherfucker, you have been in all of these and you were serious about it.
And it does not matter. You don't have to be a stadium level musician the way Spinal Tap is at the beginning of the movie. My dad has been in bar bands my whole life, and a decade before I saw this, all I knew is it is the most true movie he's ever seen.
Your dad, Steven Tyler, in the bar band Aerosmith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that I know my stage name, Mike Gravano. I'm Mike Tyler.
That
sounds stupid. It's two first names.
It makes your huge crush on the chick from Empire Records so strange, but no, it's
because she was such good friends with my sister Liv.
Yes, Renee
saved it.
Yeah, he saved it. Based on what your father has told you or your time in bands, are there scenes that just hit home so hard?
My dad's the drummer. Everybody trying to kill him all the time. I think hit him a lot. No, one of the funniest, and it's in bands or performing in general, is, and this is a lot of real rock and rollers like my dad Steven, getting lost backstage and not being. They are mazes, which is why in real modern life, there's a handler that works for the venue that takes you from a green room to the stage, because they are Byzantine mazes.
And yeah, this is one of the first things I wrote down is how real this was, because I've never played in a venue that large, but I have definitely
let me tell you about it.
Been in bands where you I think that Spinal Tap, a huge point of the movie is that if they would have had a handler 5 years ago, they don't anymore. You know,
right.
Like there's no guidance in any way, whether it's to the stage
Ego's got too big.
or in their career. And I've definitely been in places where like we just didn't know what to do, and they were like, hopefully you figure it out.
Yes.
The other one, it's not a big deal, but the picking your warm-up song or sound check song and having it be a song of your way, way past, because we don't want to waste a good one. So we're just going to sound check with this like shitty old song, which is Give Me Some Money Here.
It's a combination of we don't want to waste a quote-unquote good one, but it's also, don't we want to remember, again, going to Walk Hard, don't we want to kind of remember our entire history?
Yeah, and while they play this, they are looking at each other and rolling their eyes like, were we ever so young?
Loving it.
But yeah, but like saying like, this is, I'm going to cry because this is when we were a band and not now.
And not now when our relationships are fractured. I'm going to get real and dark, but not real dark. This kind of hangs over the whole movie part that does hit true. If you work on creative projects with friends, and this isn't my time to have a serious meeting with you.
Okay.
But I do think the level of seriousness you'll take silly shit, they capture so well of like, do you know what's going to change this whole game? Stonehenge. Even that, before we get to the joke of the movie.
What happens with Stonehenge?
That is hilarious.
Right.
Being like, no, look. I drew it. Do you see? I often, in my day-to-day life, and don't get to tell anybody, think about the story of The State, the sketch group, and how Ken Marino threw a chair against a wall because somebody didn't like the sketch he was pitching.
Because the show The State was that important at the time.
And I think it's both insane and egomaniacal, but also to get to the level of success The State did in real life, and actually frighteningly enough or coolly enough, Spinal Tap did in real life. You have to take silly shit very seriously. The difference is Christopher Guest, Harry Shearer, Michael McKean are knowingly taking their silly shit seriously,
Right.
and Nigel, Dennis,
Michael McKean and Harry Shearer.
all their characters do not know how up there, but because I think that's the difference between funny people and musicians is general intelligence. And so they don't know. Funny people, Ken Marino went home that night and went, that was fucking stupid. How did I do that? And these kinds of musicians don't have that.
Yes, I get your point where it is people who say I need to throw chairs and abuse people in order to create art. Those are fucking assholes. But the seriousness level to accomplish something is true and here. And I've always said that I think the hardest TV role in history is Jenna Maroney.
Yes.
Because you have to be this type of actress on 30 Rock, which means you can't do anything in real life on the set because the irony would
be
shatter
a little
windows.
hangry.
Right, because it would just ruin everything. We have to imagine, I've never seen footage, but we have to imagine these three guys and Rob Reiner at home as themselves taking this goofy shit as seriously as possible, that if we were to watch it, we would make fun of them as much as we're watching this. And to me, that's not, it's a little ironic, but it is truth. I just kept going back to that word with this movie, that they are bringing the truth to the screen.
I think, but there's a self-awareness because they did go on real-world tours. They made a real album. They rejoined as the Folkmen in A Mighty Wind. They're doing a sequel right now, which is, come on, guys. They've released real albums. Michael fucking McKean released a solo album as this character in the 2010s. So that actually might undercut everything else I was saying, but I think that the self-awareness of these are decades-long relationships that are clearly doing well because they are not as far as their characters, but I bet in The Dark of the Night, they all know they are a little closer to their characters than they want to be, which is why I think Harry Shearer is the glue between McKean and Guest.
Interesting. Okay. Let's get to Harry.
Based on nothing. Well, but ask me more questions.
You watched the movie, so it's based on a little bit at least. He is there, and he's just a hairy, tiny little guy.
Yeah,
isn't he?
Just a sex muppet.
Let's take a break because I want to. If we're gonna get into the whole the truth of it all, then I want to talk about the cinema verite and how the filmmaking added to it. No games tonight, Mike. No points, no games. We're just gonna keep talking about Spinal Tap all night long. Coming up next, Stonehenge. Spinal Tap is not just responsible in helping to destroy particular genres of rock that came before it. It's also given the credit or blame for creating a monster, the Mockumentary.
Some kind of monster.
Fucking Metallica. How do you have a career after watching this movie? They've never seen a movie.
But erroneous on both counts. They started to put their career. They did the Black Album because of this movie.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Again, it's self-awareness is so weird because you think if you have some, you have all of it.
Uh-huh.
So they know to do that because isn't that funny?
And they made a documentary that made them look like absolute asshole pieces of shit babies.
But continued to forever be absolute piece of shit forever babies.
And then we're in the midst of a huge, I'll get to my question in a second, Mike. Why don't you settle down? A huge viral tidal wave of another clear baby who made a documentary about the making of her movie So This Is Me Now.
Oh.
J-Lo made a documentary about that, and in that movie, that might be, if it was scripted by her, she's funnier than anyone in Spinal Tap. But Mike, I don't think...
You don't think she was saying, I'm making the real Spinal Tap too?
I think that she is actually like a character created by these gentlemen. It's a wild
movie.
What
a gift.
Ben, my poor friend
because he gets it. I think he is self-aware. But like, to quote one Marshall M. Mathers, I don't care if she was my own mother. Sorry, Diddy, I'd fuck her with no rubber.
That's exactly what Affleck says when J-Lo asks him what he thought of the movie. He says that word for word. How does Spinal Tap work in regards to the art of the doc? And is it still the GOAT mockumentary 40 years later?
Mockumentaries I did kind of backwards. My Journey, I do think, was Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Okay.
And then when there's more of these, old people make them like this too?
When you're answering, though, don't forget The Office, Parks and Rec, and Modern Family, all of the recent TV comedy.
Sure. That good, yes. And they owe theirs to Arrested Development. But we're not here to talk about the history, even though my brain can't stop me from doing that. I did Drop Dead Gorgeous, then Best in Show, and then Spinal Tap. Spinal Tap was a thing I heard of, but I had no idea.
You didn't even know probably at that point if it was a real band or not.
No, yeah. Sure, because they did tours. That is confusing.
It was Bart and Milhouse's favorite band for one single episode of The Simpsons.
The Tory years of The Simpsons. That's a Saved by the Bell reference.
The Tory years. The leather jacket lady, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
If you're a certain kind of guy, and I know I am.
She dressed like Harry Shearer.
And that is my shit. What did you ask me?
You know, for that's a hairy guy for somebody with the last name Shearer.
He should be well trimmed.
Is
stage name?
Drop Dead Gorgeous and Best in Show, did Spinal Tap blow those previous movies that you had seen away, plus everything in the future?
I think, and we'll throw Mighty Wind in. I didn't see Mascots or his other show.
Guffman is the
Waiting for Guffman is his first one, yes. I love that he was like, I was part of a thing. I'll just go do that alone.
And then take over it.
And take it over. I
think that he is to Spinal Tap as Tim Burton is to Nightmare Before Christmas. People just assume that Christopher Guest directed it.
I had several arguments this week with other people. They did not believe me. They're like, Rob Reiner, Patu. I was like, don't spit on his name.
Or my shirt. What the fuck?
Come on, this is disgusting. I think the difference is between, and we're not here to talk about if Drop Dead Gorgeous is amazing, and it is, but the difference is between Guest's other movies and Drop Dead and Spinal Tap is the truthiness. And while maybe if you go to dog shows, you can find those characters who freak out about Busy Bee, but the not set up punchline, even though those are also improvised, those are all clear characters. Nobody's going to watch them and be like, these are real people. And I think that elevates Spinal Tap.
Uh-huh.
And I do think, like we were talking about last segment, there's the world of rock and roll is already so absurd and detached from reality. It is ripe for the picking, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about stories all episode that we, had heard or read online or we read on bathroom stalls. But this movie, there's a ton of legend and lore around it.
Yes.
And one of them is that at the British premiere or like a British sneak peek for critics just before it came out, they were given materials that said that this is the story of the loudest British rock band of all time. And these are British people in the theaters. They'd be like, I would have heard of them, right? And we're confused. I think at some point there's like a very famous British character actor that comes in.
Oh, okay.
And then
Billy Crystal.
Somebody from TV, yes. And so they finally got it. But there was a solid 25 minutes where they were confused, but more on the side of this is real. I just don't know how we had seen this band.
Well, it's the loudest band, not the biggest band.
Right. That's true.
And that itself, that's a funny fucking joke.
It just speaks to the fact that like the groundedness of the characters, the true, and this is definitely the case with all of our favorite TV shows that did the mockumentary thing, that did the mock arena, the true commitment to documentary filmmaking, because you will, if you decide to make a mockumentary, you don't know this yet, Mike, but I'm telling you right now.
Because I'm about to.
A mockumentary.
A mockumentary.
You will cheat. You will just do things eventually at some point that documentaries don't do because because it's not a real documentary. I really don't think this movie does
Eventually, season 9, you're like, I know we never showed it, but one of the cameramen did try to hit on Pam.
Right. Let's
like a real documentary.
Do something like that. The billionaire from Silicon Valley, is that who it was?
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, Trace Kamas.
Yes.
It was him.
And I believe he played Mo in the Three Stooges movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Weird career, that
Wild
guy.
career. But so much of the stuff post Spinal Tap depends on talking heads.
Yes.
Basically, all you're doing is you're saying, I don't want to think about directing. This is shitty to the shows, but I don't want to think about directing the shows. And also, I want to use talking heads to get whatever point across I want about character or plot.
Whether it's joke, character, or plot. But what this does, they don't do the pure talking heads that come later. This ain't no disco. This ain't no fooling around. It is all interviews. Rob Reiner is on camera most of the time there. If there's only one of them, which is rare, he's there with them.
Right. Marty DeBurga.
They are clearly, the game they are playing is, can I make the other guys laugh?
Yes.
And there's
a scene.
One scene that McKean almost cracks, and you could just see Guest's eyes just like, I won.
Do you remember what it was? Explain it.
I think this is, they are outside.
Uh-huh.
He has Guest has this weird stripy shirt on. Who a Guest looking like a snack.
Okay, so when I say describe it, not every detail of everything.
I want to say it's when he's like, what is it? The drummers, like, what's happened to your drummers? And is it gardening accident?
It is. That is in the same scene, but I think that the part that where they start to break, it might be gardening accident, but it's also Rob Reiner just reading reviews and saying instead of shark sandwich, shit sandwich. And Guest and McKean are holding back smiles. And it rolls into their character because their characters are just like, oh, didn't understand. That's funny to us.
Yeah, flabbergasted. Like, huh.
But I do think there's something in their smile that is real and cracking.
They have the real laugh and then turn it into the, okay, those people just don't get our art. I didn't realize shit sandwich was invented by this movie.
Did you Google it to see what book it first appeared in? It didn't appear in the Bible or
Moby Dick?
Oh, it did?
No, I don't know.
Call
me shit sandwich.
Christopher Guest did not direct this movie. It was Henry Selick, stop motion superstar.
That got me. My brain went, oh.
But like as far as the two directors go, we've seen a ton of Rob Reiner movies.
Also, if we're talking about just like
Wild Careers,
thank you. Why he does not have, and I know we'll get to him later in a specific award type show segment. Runs the fucking gamut. What a guy who goes like, I can do that genre.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a genre? I can do that genre.
Or
I'm a meatball head.
You want me to do that genre? I already did it. I'll never do it again. Like his career is crazy, and it's not just the wildness of the genres; it's the wildness of quality of movies.
Yes.
He has made 3, let's say, all timers.
Mm-hmm. And I love that we agree,
but we don't know which ones.
I bet we agree on. They're definitely one of them.
You love Kate and Leopold.
I fucking love Kate and Leopold.
Where Roger Ebert did the math.
It's a love time travel movie.
Turned out that Meg Ryan fucked her great grandfather.
The Dream.
So this is Spinal Tap.
Mm-hmm.
The Princess Bride.
Okay, that's the one I wasn't sure how you felt about it.
Now,
and here's where we differ.
Right, because there's a movie that is beloved that I think is average. So I'm saying the third one, and there's no more after this, is When Harry Met Sally.
Oh, cool. Yeah, then, yes, we agree.
Okay.
Because the one that people love, I haven't seen.
Which is?
A Few Good Men.
Oh, there's 4.
I think there's
there
hashtag
are 4.
No Good Men.
I would say hashtag Some Good Men. There are 4. I think A Few Good Men is a home run.
Misery is the one you think. No, what's the one people love that you think
Stand By Me.
Stand By Me.
Yeah, I think is a good movie, but is not in the echelon of those 4 that we just mentioned.
Do you know what it does do? And again, is he captures, there's reality in Stand By Me. It captures the feeling of what it is to be a preteen, of danger is starting to be real. We are starting to grow apart from our childhood friends.
That's okay. So
people get confused and think that means great movie.
Right. And yeah, it's a lot of people's first rated R movies of our generation. So I think that's a lot of it too, is that this is the first time they've seen a movie with that many curse words. But
mine was Debbie Does Dallas.
Not that many curse words, believe it or not.
No, I was shocked.
Everybody was like, please place your penis in my fucking mouth. Let's go off of something that you said before, but I do want to talk about what does Rob Reiner bring to Spinal Tap that Christopher Guest, it makes the Christopher Guest that movies that he actually directed, as opposed to Spinal Tap, different.
I think, and I don't know the history of who Guest worked with on his, but the vibe is we've only done one other movie this season, so I should be able to, it's Repo Man. What Reiner did of what Alex did is find a fucking pro in their field and go, thank you. Because the cinematographer in this worked on real docs and had also one of the people, just like stupid my dad, Steven Tyler, no idea why this was funny.
So, yes, that like he had done documentaries before and then shot this as if he would one of his movies, and then comedy.
I assume he also thought they were a real band.
It's so loud, but yeah, I do think that. So, do we think that it's been a while? I haven't seen any Christopher Guest movies since I watched Spinal Tap. Obviously, do we think that Christopher Guest maybe cheats a little bit in his docs? He definitely relies on the talking head.
He cheats a little. He gets the talking head, and he is in all of his movies, but as a full character. And Rob Reiner, this is a different kind of cheat. The director of this movie is playing the director of the documentary, so he is on camera steering the scenes the way they need to go. It's pretty impressive, but it is a bit of a cheat.
What if also if you were 20 years older than you are, and you're watching this movie in theaters, and you're also this whole time thinking that's the director of the movie, and he's playing the director of this movie in the movie, and also that's Meathead from a sitcom?
Thank you. I called him Meatball Head a few minutes ago, and the whole time I was like, I don't know what word I added that was wrong.
Ballhead.
Ballhead. Carol Kane loved to call him Ballhead.
But yeah, I think it's just a shocking. It adds to the shocking career that he had, is that he was also a sitcom star.
Yes.
I think that there's this need for Rob Reiner to also, much more than Christopher Guest, as grounded as Spinal Tap is, I think that Christopher Guest is a little bit more allergic to the Hollywood happy ending than Rob Reiner is. After Spinal Tap, he's going to make his career with a billion Hollywood happy endings. But Christopher Guest, with the exception of like the two people in the folk song coming together and
Mickey
singing the song, Mickey and Mooney or whatever,
Mooney.
Christopher Guest has a little bit of it, but I think he's a lot more allergic, and I think Rob Reiner is allergic to not doing it.
Guest's movies also have 20 guests. Like, he follows so many characters. So somebody has to get a sort of happy ending.
That's true. By the
but
odds are.
the happiness is not this happy. Where we watched 93 minutes. Oh, I love the 80s, man.
Yeah.
Movies are the right length. Of terrible, awful, piece of garbage narcissists. And then they end happy?
Uh-huh.
So, one, they don't deserve it. Two, I've hung out with these guys for a while. What a good night they had. This will all come to a head soon. And by soon, I mean 40 years later when Spinal Tap 2 comes out.
And we all don't like it. Mike, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, let's dive into the actual hee-hees and ha-has that you were mentioning before. And this, what is the love affair in this movie? Who's it between? Oh my God, Mike, thank you for being here.
Thanks for still having me.
Is this a question?
Yes.
Okay, how about this question then? Is this a mean-spirited comedy? Is there a part where it starts to feel like they're punching down?
That feels leading, like I should say yes, but here's
You've already answered this question. Can I explain to you how you have?
Please.
Oh my God, you would love to have me do that?
I would love for you to answer your question with my words.
You would consider me to be lovely if I did that?
Can you start with, to quote my good friend Mike?
Mark Twingravagno.
I don't hate that.
You have talked more about how awful these people are than anybody else I've ever heard talk about this movie.
Really?
Yes. That they're like, whatever charm or, as I mentioned earlier, je ne sais quoi that they do have, and they do.
They do.
But does Nigel or does Christopher Guest, right?
No, oh yes. I think Michael, Harry, and Christopher have charm.
I'm going to feed this to you right now.
Feed me. Feed my fat mouth.
David, Nigel, and Derek do not.
It's the 2 Ds. That's going to make me never remember anything.
Uh-huh. So the fact that, because this question is about, is this movie punching down and hurting people who don't deserve it? And you said instead, Rob Reiner's Hollywood ending is something that they don't deserve.
Yes. It's punching down is a power dynamic, and I'm going to say, no matter what decade we're in, a bunch of improvisers have no power over a bunch of rock and roll gods.
You don't think that eventually, I mean, rock is lower
There
than
was
it's
a
ever been.
period from 2007 to 2014 that improv was rock and roll.
Where Amy Poehler could punch down on Nickelback and we'd get upset.
Oh, we hated that.
But you were never like, come on, movie, give these guys a break.
No. The characters never earned their break.
There's a couple of things going on, too. The comedy aside, but just like the truthiness of the rock and roll story is one, it seems with all evidence that they did this to themselves. And two,
Yes.
and I think this is really important to watch in other stories of rock and roll artists, whether it's like docs or fictional, almost famous, like Stillwater, is that it's only about 5 years, 6 years. Oasis was the biggest band of all time for 5 years. That's really all you get. If you look at the years that all the Beatles albums that you know came out, even the Beatles,
So short.
it's about 5 to 7 years, and then you go down.
And then you go back up with Wings.
Yeah, the difference is, how are you preparing for your next swoop up?
Yes.
Are you thinking about Wings will be better than the Beatles? And they are.
They are.
You fucking admit it right now.
They made a show about Wings. They never made a show about the Beatles.
Or are you going to deny, and not admit to anything that's going on?
Or is it denial for Hoobastank to still be touring and doing festivals? They know they are not what they were in 2002.
Right. If you were on this is just how the times have changed. If you were on what was called a 90s tour
Yes.
in 2004, you are. Yeah, like that's
but now you are making that bank.
There was
your
a 90s
401k.
tour a couple weeks ago as of this recording, and they had, I mean, like Alicia Silverstone was there for Clueless. Like, maybe that's not the biggest
What
star
music
of all time.
was playing?
But I mean, like a 90s convention, rather.
Oh, okay. I was very confused. I was
yeah.
like, is she the MC?
Now people don't think
Nostalgia is the joie de vivre. Am I using that correctly?
And you're like, if you're not going to get 13-year-olds to go to a movie that you're not even starring in anyway, nobody's offering it to you, go hang out with the 40-year-olds who want to see
who
you.
still love your shit from the Monster Squad.
And so this, to me, is them saying we're always going to be at the top, regardless of the fact that they're ruining their career constantly.
Yes. And I bet a lot of the bands that we have talked about throughout this had that period, and then hopefully at this point, I would like to think, maybe not every member of Metallica, but I bet James Hetfield understands the scope and story of Metallica and is fine with where they are now, that they are a nostalgia act.
I asked him if he did believe that, and he was like, yeah.
I always forget he's your neighbor.
Uh-huh.
We could write a sitcom about your life.
I need to stop complaining about him because I think he's starting to know that it's me.
Anytime you ring the order bell, he does go, "Enter Ryan Man." Dun, 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 dun,
I have a very
dun.
strict belief that there should be one handsome ginger per neighborhood, and he is wrecking my shit.
Yeah, the ratio is off.
All the retired women out here that like used to be all about the me, they're all about the James Hetfield.
Dave Mustaine tried to move in, and you beat him to death.
I beat him to death. When was the last time you heard about Dave Mustaine?
Years.
Yeah,
because you beat him to death.
I killed him. Mike, let's talk about romance. Now, it is clear that the studio freaked out a little bit, and they added the minimum amount of plot line to the movie.
Right.
And that is when David St. Hubbins, played by Michael McKean's girlfriend,
Janine
comes
Has
on.
there ever been a good Janine
the
other
road
than
with
Garofalo?
And it's a little Yoko-y.
Yes.
It's a little, ew, I don't like girls. The movie gets a little bit like that.
Mm-hmm.
But she sort of takes over some of the music writing, the band management. David thinks
the costumery.
Yeah, she's better at everything. And the Yoko Ono-ness making fun of Janine is, I'm not sure what the actual conflict is.
Thank you. Yes, that is when you were saying punching down just because men are above women. So yes, that is punching down. Power dynamics is what we're talking about in this movie only.
Uh-huh.
Yes, she comes in. The rest, I could see a younger version of me thinking even these characters, not just these actors, have charm, except for Janine.
Uh-huh.
And I think she's great. I'm not going to say it's because our lead 4, if you include Reiner, are more talented. She is very talented at what her character is supposed to be doing and crushes it in like very little nuanced moments. But she has one goal.
Yeah. She doesn't get a lot of the scenes of like, you two, be in a restaurant, go.
Just
right?
be together, yeah.
And I did read that she got the part over a lot of people that were more famous just because of how she could hang with the actors. Mm-hmm. And in a movie like this, what is more important?
They recorded over 100 hours.
Yeah, so that is the goal. But I think that the movie, while shitting on Janine and making her an enemy that's unnecessary to me in the movie, the weakest part, not because of Janine, but because of how the movie treats Janine.
Yes.
I think that it does shine a light on the more interesting thing, which is Nigel and David's love.
Yes.
And maybe more on Nigel's side, we see from his angle how heartbroken he is.
And Nigel's Christopher Guest.
Yes.
Christopher Guest.
That his love is leaving him.
And it does, and this, I think Spinal Tap is making fun of a lot of bands. I don't think there's one band that goes from the genre of Skrillex, of the new originals. They were the originals, and then somebody else was the original, so they became the new originals. What is that genre? I'm not gonna fucking
Dubstep?
No, it's probably dubstep. It's like pre-rock subgenre. I don't think there's a band that went from the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand, into this kind of flower power, into heavy metal.
Within like 6 years.
Instead, they are fucking with different bands at different moments.
Right.
I almost wish it would be a different movie and it would be not improvised, right? And probably would feel less truthy, that we had seen moments of Janine of their different eras. Or is she new? And how did David and Nigel interact in those different eras? But that's when it was like just hard jokes is flashing to those moments.
I mean, yeah, that is sort of a solution that would add more problems than solve things.
Probably.
Yeah.
And again, we love this runtime. And that would only...
We do not want to add more runtime. The movie could have been 100 hours, Mike. We don't... We're just tired of movies. Dune Part 2.
Just do Part 2.
Denis Villeneuve. Stop making 100-hour movies. You should cut some of that.
Just cut some of it, Denis.
But I do think that I'm not necessarily saying that there is a homosexual love, although I'm not saying it. But I'm saying that there's a workplace, artistic, being in a group together love that the camera lingers on Nigel in a way that isn't just disdain for Janine.
Right.
But also
jealousy.
What it is being replaced as David's number one.
Yes.
Whether that's romantic or not.
Who are you going to listen to the most right now?
Right. And when the show's over, when we go on a break, who are you going to go to hang out with?
Yes.
And it's not Nigel anymore.
And there's probably a version that takes place a few years before this that Harry Shearer's character realized he will always be everybody's number 2.
Right.
And now number 3. And then, I mean, the keyboardist is just there being a whack job.
He needed more scenes.
Yeah, I fucking love this guy. Who I think he was the editor of Lampoon.
Huh.
So they just knew him, he was coming, but he's not an actor. I think there's a reason, but like just throw a different lampshade or something on his head.
Can he play the keyboard in real life?
Probably. I think this is how Christopher Guest is very similar to Nigel. He went back and what they did do reshoots of is playing the songs so their fingers were actually where they're supposed to be.
Yes.
Woo!
Yeah.
That is Nigel as fuck.
So he is taking some things seriously. Mike, unfortunately, the drop pad called in sick along with Greg, so I have to do my least favorite thing in podcasting, which is a human being going...
I've only seen them in the same room.
Speed round. Mike, it's time for speed round. I hate it so much. This is your last chance to earn all of the points for the show. Here we go. A rockumentary needs rock songs. How are the songs in this movie?
I'd say they range. These guys are shockingly talented musicians, and it is annoying. But some of these songs, I think, purposely suck. I never need to hear their Led Zeppelin Druid song ever. That is not a good song.
That's it. That's not Stonehenge?
Stonehenge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's again. Each moment is a different band. That has to be Led Zeppelin.
Well, yeah, because Led Zeppelin would just be like a hell of a guitar solo, and then
We've read The Hobbit,
and then elves come from the sky. But yeah, like we haven't talked about how. Are you sitting down for this one? He turns a speaker up to 11 or an amplifier up to 11.
Is that from this movie?
That's from this movie. But that's sort of explains the greatness of this movie, because any broad comedy, say like if this was called a Rock Movie by the guys who made Date Movie and Epic Movie,
they should do that.
Then all of the parodies of the songs would be turned up to 20.
Yes.
And the fact that they just turn it up to 11 and they're just slightly more ridiculous than the songs that they're parodying is part of what makes this movie perfect. Who is the best cameo in this movie? And why is it Gumby?
The details of this movie are golden. And the fact that Nigel either always has a Gumby crop top, or if he doesn't, has Gumby in his breast pocket. Why? And I know I've seen this movie a couple times. Never caught that before this time.
Did you learn after watching X-Men 97 starring Gambit that Nigel's gay because he wore a crop top one time?
Yes. One time is all it takes.
Shit.
It's not going to a drag story hour. It's wearing a crop top once.
Does it alternate? So, like, if I wear a crop top twice, am I then straight?
That's math, baby.
Okay. Is Harry Shearer outclassed here, or is he doing something different than the other actors?
I think this is what I call Brian Husky theory. Brian Husky is an actor you definitely know. Listeners, if you're not driving, Google him right now, and you're going to say, that guy. He has a beard. He wears glasses. He's balding. He is never the star, and because I used to live in L.A., Ryan, saw him do improv a lot. But if you pull out this linchpin, everything kind of crumbles. He is there to, almost like a bass player, lay the groove. Everybody else follow that shit along. And I think Harry Shearer knows his role just like the bass player does.
I sort of agree in that he is the bass player, and like a bass player, you don't give a fuck about who is playing it. The biggest surprise to me, sitting down to watch this movie in a long time, is that in my head, they were 3 equal parts.
Right.
And watching this movie, I could not believe how little Harry Shearer is in it or does.
Yes.
And I just disagree with you wholeheartedly.
Wow.
When he was on screen, I didn't understand why it wasn't more Nigel and David, which is the beating heart and soul and brain and cock of this
When
movie.
they're off screen, everybody should be saying, why aren't Nigel and David on screen?
Am I also talking about me and you when I talk about them? Sure.
We're Nigel and David?
Yeah, and everybody's always like, why aren't they talking more on a podcast?
Yeah, people always want us to talk more, especially when we guest on other people's podcasts. I also wonder if your memory is one, Simpsons, Harry Shearer is so great, but in
the whole guestiverse of
in
just how
A
big
Mighty
Harry Shearer-
Wind,
yeah.
when it's the trio's back, I do think he is a true third part of that stool.
He said E-O's.
Deny that.
But you thought that he was a comedic delight.
No, yeah, I think, again, when I say I'm only complimenting my one true love, Brian Husky, I think that is such an important role to sit there and groove. And this is less wild because it's the 80s, and everybody always says how tame the 80s was.
Uh-huh.
But comedically speaking, the big personalities are not as crazy as they would go on to get in these worlds. But I think this kind of person is very necessary.
I mean, if you think about the 80s, it was like Iran Contra, Reaganomics, right?
Iran Contra.
Atari.
It's a hard game.
Joystick.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get those 99 lives in Contra?
I never could.
Oh, it's up.
I got 99 lives, but I bet you
BA,
won.
BA select start. I think that I realized what is going on here is that me and Greg are the Nigel and David, and you.
Just, everybody loves him. I think I get what you're saying to a point, but I also think there's a huge divide between Gaston McKean, Nigel and David, and then Harry Shearer, and then
Janine and the manager,
the drummer. But we only know Mick Shrimpton. And Ving Rhames, the keyboardist.
Ving Rhames. What was the Band-Aid on the back of the keyboardist's head for? Doesn't matter. The world of Spinal Tap has continued with real-life tours, concert films, actual albums by the band, solo albums by characters, and a sequel being made as we speak. Is that insane?
Yes.
We are 2 movies in, and 2 lady characters have worn headbands with long, dangly bits in this 1984 season. Did any real woman wear this fashion, or was this just in movies and comics?
Movies and comics loved pirates.
Dazzler also?
Dazzler also.
From the X-Men.
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody knows.
Did you wear this in 1984?
I did.
Cool.
I love it. I love it. More women should still bring this
also,
back. Fuck leg warmers.
I think that if you make a movie in a time, you should take every fashion of the time to the extreme.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're gonna make a movie in that's about 1974, not only is everybody in bell bottoms, but it's the
biggest bell bottoms.
Yeah.
Janko jean bell bottoms.
What's with Marty DeBurgi's hat?
It was the USS Oral. It's an oral joke.
Yeah.
I think it's a sloppy oral joke.
Instead of coral, it says oral.
Yes. I think that's it. Is Rob Reiner's like, I know I'm not the funny character here. I'm gonna. I made this hat, guys, and they went, "Cool, Rob."
I have the actual answer to this if you want.
Do you?
Yeah.
Tell me.
That he was going to wear a Navy hat, but the Navy didn't want him to, so they had to replace a letter. So they just took the C off. But it's actually a parody of Steven Spielberg, who throughout the late 70s and early 80s would wear militaristic, like LAPD hats. He would wear Army hats, Navy hats.
He's
like,
such a fucking dork.
Not like hats that you would wear if you were in those things, but like ball caps with
celebrating
their logos
them
on them.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there a more beautiful line than "Talk about mud flaps, my girl's got 'em"?
Remember when I said I was howling? That is a song. That song when you're like, oh yeah, they do. Is that Sex Farm?
Probably. Yeah.
You're like, okay, and Mud Flaps. No, it's Big Bottom, and this is their Queen song.
Yes.
Written as if I were a gay man who's trying to pretend to be a straight man. Well, how would I write a song? And they nail that.
We were talking about Led Zeppelin and Stonehenge. Like, this might be less ridiculous than Fat Bottom Girls, the Queen song.
Oh yeah, I do. Yes,
Like,
they make the rock and world go round.
People that used to write music were nuts. We're gonna take a break, and when we come back, this movie is gonna get some awards. Michael, Tyler.
You know where I no longer will I hide behind my stage name.
Michael Stephen, Michael
Gravano.
Gravano. How did I forget that already?
It's I as a kid I loved the Mob, but not the big guys.
Right.
I loved Sammy the Bull, and that's how I got my stage name. No, I'm Michael Tyler.
Did you, in your fake character, Mike Gravano, go back and look up to see if Sammy the Bull is related to you at all?
Yeah.
And?
Yeah. Oh, they dropped the G in the way my quote-unquote real family did not.
In a way that I bet he dropped a lot of G's in his time.
He dropped a lot of G's, and also he ratted out. He was the titular witness to the mob in the TV movie Witness to the Mob.
That sounds more like you than, like, being tough for killing people.
Oh, no. I'm a narc rat? Sure.
I'm a narc
You guys
rat,
are doing things wrong.
And I'm going to make the quickest of phone calls real quick. Don't even worry about it. Mike, this movie was nominated for several amounts of no Academy Awards whatsoever. Why don't we give it awards now?
Why don't we?
But actually, I don't want to. First, we're going to do a recommendation inspired by the film This Is Spinal Tap. Now, this is the part that is actually for points, and I'm going to also be nominating things. So
you go first.
I wish you good luck on earning any points. You want me to go first?
And you refuse to go first?
No, I'll go first.
Please go
Is
first.
this your power play?
It's my power play.
Okay.
You're in my house now.
You are. You just crossed your legs, and now you're slowly uncrossing them.
Sharon Stone, bitch. Just a portrait of her on my cock.
Cool. Very recently, I did something crazy, which is watch a movie that was not assigned to me. I didn't have to do it for any publication. I write for The New Yorker. I write for zines all across the land. I write for the Washington Post, the Washington Times, the Washington Courier, the Washington Inquirer, as a film critic of well-regard, high renown. But I watched a movie that I was not assigned, and it's called Begin Again.
I've heard of this from you off air, not hours ago.
Yes.
Tell me about it, stud.
Mark Ruffalo and Keira Knightley star in this as a record exec and a musician who want to put together a record. This is John Carney. So this is the movie that was in between Once and Sing Street.
That's why I know. I can think of this trailer.
Right. Absolutely. And I think for most people, they were like, I've seen that trailer 6 times, so probably,
I get it.
Yeah, I don't need to watch the movie. I am recommending this movie in a different way than I typically do, because typically I recommend the movie.
Yes.
I love Once. I love Sing Street.
Yeah.
And I love This Is Spinal Tap. We have spent the entire night talking about the rock and roll truthiness of Spinal Tap, how there is no more real music movie.
Right.
This is the fakest fucking bullshit piece of shit. Like,
Have you seen Danny Boyle's Yesterday?
No.
It might not be the fakest.
But, I mean, that at least has fantastic...
Magic, yeah.
This movie, there is not a single scene in this movie about music that has ever gone down in a way that any other moment in any other musician's life has ever gone down.
Which is baffling, knowing it's
Once in Sing Street?
The middle of his trilogy of Once in Sing Street, which hit different, in very real ways, different periods of music.
I don't think I've ever seen Ruffalo and Knightley worse, but he is... this movie is... I recommend it as a double feature because Spinal Tap will teach you almost everything that you can learn from a movie about musicians, and then this will delete it all from your brain so then you can just move on with your life.
See, I was going to say, I think it's a perfect double feature, having not seen one of them, but I've saw the trailer a bunch of times.
Sure.
It will ruin all music movies for you forever.
Yes.
Because one did it too well, and one just did everything every other music does worse, but they still all do it. So therefore, just ignore the genre. And then you have so much more time in your life.
That's true. Like, knock out an entire... So I never have to watch anything again because I have the two extremes here.
I used to never read space comics as a kid
Sure.
because I was just like, I just can't. There's just too much, so I'm writing off space.
Mm-hmm.
Do that with music movies.
I did that with church.
Oh, that saves a lot of time.
There's not enough time in the day.
You get so much done when you don't go to church.
Especially Sunday mornings.
Sleep.
I listen to No Doubt every time. Begin Again was so much the opposite of This Is Spinal Tap that, Mike, I would have called it Tap Spinal Is This.
I don't know. Not that Begin Again is such a great title because nobody can remember. I've already forgotten. I just said it. But I don't know if yours would have pulled people in either.
Would it have been better if instead of going word backwards from This Is Spinal Tap, if I did it letter by letter, if I did Pat... Do you want to watch me do this?
As if you were playing Smell the Glove backwards.
Exactly. Mike, what do you recommend for fans of This Is Spinal Tap?
They do it so well, and I knew for a fact we would mention all of other guests' good movies. So watch those. That's not a recommendation. So it has to be a real rock doc that the guy, and this is one of my favorite bands, and the guy comes off so bad he has since said he was playing a character. I do not think this is true. Matt Berenger, singer, dulcet-toned singer of The National. His brother joined them for a tour years ago as a roadie because he was trying to help his dumb little brother out. And instead of doing a good job at being a roadie, he filmed everything as if he was a young Mike Gravano from the beginning of the show talking about himself in high school. And young Berenger trying to film everything and trying to... I think the age gap is significant and trying to bond with his brother while his brother's trying to be a rock star and be a very serious guy, but also kind of be the boss of a crew of 40 people and everybody needs to do their job for this to work. Try to deal with his brother and being a rock star at the same time. Mistaken for Strangers is an awesome rock documentary that is not a normal rock documentary.
First of all, you like The National? Cool. Second of all,
Very cool.
Describe the brother. Is he...
He is...
Is he a piece of shit loser?
There's two Johns from the comedy world that I confuse. There's Gabrus, who is Long Island. And there's Gemberling. So he's closer to Gabrus. No, so he's the third guy I always confuse. Bevers from...
Is Gemberling.
Broad City. Is Gemberling.
I believe.
Then who's the skinny guy who goes bow, 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 on Superstore?
Johnny Pemberton.
He's not that. So it's the one, it's Gemberling. I'm glad we did this. It's Gembies, and he kind of looks like him, and he acts like a lot of Gemberling's characters do.
I'm going to change your
Wreck?
opinion about a movie that I haven't seen, but is he closer to that guy who looks like Gemberling, but he plays the loser brother in Orange is the New Black and Severance?
Yes,
that's
I
him?
always confuse those
Yeah.
guys. So yes, because that guy has a sweet soul and is a real human, and Bevers you want to strangle.
Right.
So he is closer. Wow, man, we are buds. He is closer to that guy, and towards the end of the movie, he is now living with Matt and Matt's wife in their guest room, trying to edit all the footage nobody wanted him to film and can't. And so now they are trying to convince him to finish this thing they didn't want to exist anyway. It is fascinating, and there's so many different kinds of arrogance in this movie. It is phenomenal.
Now, Jefferson National, the lead singer of The National, was not in charge of the filming or editing of this movie.
No.
I don't want to keep bringing up what both of our recommendations should be, but Jennifer Lopez was in charge. She picked the shit that we saw. That's a whole nother level.
No. Yes.
Mike, let's do...
This is me now, something, something, something?
Yeah, This Is Me,
This
It's
is
an
me,
Irish movie. Mike, let's go over Best Name. That's a new award just for this particular movie, because the movie actually doesn't, as far as like Americans playing Brits, do a lot of the stuff that we see now of how Brits are ridiculous, like they say in it after everything.
Yeah, but they really do.
Does that go away with Best Name? What is the best name from this movie?
Mine is, it's not one of the big three. It is the drummer who lives the longest. Mick Shrimpton.
Yeah.
I
saw your face when you said that earlier in the show.
Yeah, I was like, oh no. I said it burned into my brain in a way nobody else's names did.
If
Is he a cartoon shrimp?
Is it better as a first and last name or as just a last name? Like if his name was James McShrimpton.
James McShrimpton. Like, so he's Irish.
Uh-huh. And probably an attorney at law.
Yeah.
I did go the British route. I went Sir Dennis Eatonhog.
Who's the owner of the record label they're on, right?
Right. And
that is a good one.
That might be the one, the character actor that the British people saw in the movie theater and was like, okay, this must be a parody.
This is fake.
Yeah. Classic.
They didn't know Dana Carvey and Mime?
Dana Carvey's in this movie for 1 second.
And does not talk.
And I think that
it is a decade before anybody knew who he was.
It's my favorite Dana Carvey performance. That's about as much as I can take of that guy. Best song, Mike, you already said it, but let's hear it.
Did I say it? Well, I don't even know if I said it on air because I cannot stop singing. Tonight, we're gonna rock it. Tonight, we're gonna rock it. And you don't know how fucking funny it is until you realize, looking at the track listing, the song is called Tonight, We're Gonna Rock It, Tonight. And this is a band
Kiss?
that a band that I hate how much I love them. This is Detroit Rock City era Kiss, and it is flawless in making fun of fucking Kiss.
Kiss, I gotta say, never a big fan. Always like the WWE of rock to me, and I never got the fans because it's almost like the ICP of before. Like,
it's a joke, but it's not
right. But it's just how particularly Gene Simmons has proved himself to be.
Fuck Gene Simmons for so many reasons, but also like the makeup. He has like he's the demon. But the other ones, half the note's a joke because it's Star Child and the Kitty Cat drummer. Uh-huh. I assume Gene Simmons walked into band practice one day with his makeup and they went, "No, that is a cool idea," and then did their makeup, being like, "This is how you look, idiot."
They keep making a fist near their crotch and moving it back and forth. That's
sex
how they
is
applaud
cool,
things.
guys.
I did go with your least favorite song, which is Stonehenge. I think that this is an incredible song about elves and demons, and the whole package from the set decoration to the crank it up to 11 of Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin is probably the most ruined band for me because of this movie.
Can't fucking take it seriously. Also, a musical I love. It kind of reminded me of the opening to Hedwig and the Angry Inch, The Origin of Love. I was like, oh, is that actually fucking stupid?
Mike, again, everything you like is stupid.
Everything you like is stupid. Everything you know is wrong, Ryan.
The cringiest moment of the movie. Now, you had brought up how all comedies of this era and later eras and previous eras riddled with homophobia. There is one flamboyantly gay, hotel employee.
Barely registered.
Other than that, as you had brought up before, this movie fucking skates through.
Passes the sniff test. And we did talk about my cringe, and I can't just say Janine. So it will be at the end. They thought they were going to all break up. They're pretty big in Japan. But it's the night they find out they're going to be big in Japan. And it's David inviting Nigel on stage. The moment I said they didn't earn, but it is a good moment in the movie. But the Janine is just stewing. She's just so angry because all she has is anger at Nigel as a character trait.
And Nigel has to look over there and be like, "What up now?
Who's on stage now, bitch?"
My cringe was Fran Drescher, man. After the strike and just listening to all her speeches, and it's really hard to take her seriously. I'm not saying that I shit on her voice and her performance during like the nanny
You're
era.
not Janice.
I'm not. No, absolutely not. But she's.
Do you know what's fucked up? This character, Bernadette St. Bernice or whatever, shows up in an episode of The Nanny. In like season 3, the nanny Fran Drescher has to pretend to be this person to get into a. Who is that for?
Are you right now suggesting, and I know that you are, so it's a stupid question, that we turn this into a nanny rewatch show?
I think people are sick of movie of the year. It's time to go episode by episode by the least talked about, most loved sitcom of the 90s, The Nanny.
Pop Filter presents The Nanny State.
I watched a fuck ton of The Nanny. Also, perfect podcast name.
Best performance. If you go obvious here, I might take away your points. But if you go wrong, I might give you 100. Like, I'm crazy right now.
What? There's so many good ones, but I think he took over and helped create the genre for a reason. He is so good. It's Christopher Guest.
Yeah, it's everyone is good except for Harry Shearer, but everyone is incredible. This is the one that is truly, without the douchebagginess that comes along with method acting, the Daniel Day-Lewis, Marlon Brando performance of the movie.
Yes.
Christopher Guest is
Nigel.
And I don't think, based on any Guest movies that I've seen, he ever comes close. Obviously, he has a lot more to do on those movies, but this is a complete transformation.
He's a character versus, like, I love him in Best in Show, but him naming different kinds of hounds is just a joke. It doesn't let you. I think there are moments that I think he's very good at hitting loneliness in his characters, and so the guy who can list all the hounds, you look at him, and go, "Oh, this is all you have." But he's not
Bubba Gump,
but his Bubba, but is not as fully fleshed out as Nigel is.
I just thought of a new podcast idea. Okay,
we should have more.
Yeah. So after we start the Nanny State, you were talking about Steven Tyler and his reaction to this movie. Your father.
My father.
We should get somebody that reacts that same way to Guffman and Best in Show, like a dog person in Best in Show that doesn't see it as a comedy.
Yes.
And just get into their lives. What are you like, buddy?
What's your deal, bro?
Oh, title. We're on fire tonight.
We are on fire.
All right, so we both have the same performance. Michael McKean, absolutely amazing job.
Great. For sure.
Dana Carvey, of course, but it's Christopher Guest.
Dana Carvey's best performance.
Rob Reiner. Does he have any signature moments in any movie that he has ever made?
I would call him a journeyman, which is a nice way of saying fuck no, he does not have signature moments. But I think, may I interrupt you interrupting me?
Sure.
I think there are different kind of directors. Some are cameramen, and we know none of them are actually cameramen. That's against union rules. But some you can tell it's this director because of how the camera moves. Or the moment Scorsese is going to, we're walking through and we're talking.
And even though it is 1742, Rolling Stones are blaring.
Oh, Born with the Devil on Their Shoulders. Favorite Stones song. I think Reiner's is, so there's character directors, people who can get the best of their actors. And I do think, even though he is journeyman, thinking about his movies, his batshit insane career as a director, I do think two things he's kind of obsessed with in humans and how they interact with each other is arrogance and obsession, and how those two things can drive people. And you can see it in this. You can see it in When Harry Met Sally. You can see it in A Few Good Men, and you can see it in Misery. Like, and in Princess, like, you can range, and sometimes it's used as very funny. Vasily the Sicilian in Princess Bride, to Wesley's obsession with Buttercup, like. But I think
Wallace Shawn's obsession with things being inconceivable.
Yes, that's Vasily, by the way.
Oh,
I know characters, you know actors. We are a perfect pair. I do think these two emotions fascinate Rob Reiner. And when I went on Google Hill and just thought about his career, I was flabbergasted when I realized you could tie all of the things he does, even though they are very disparate with that.
To the point where I do think that it took over him as well, because I think that there's a pretty common theory that it was a wild career, but it was a really good career. And then at about 1992 or so, when A Few Good Men came out, that his obsession and what was the other one? Arrogance about being liberal and having liberals take over is sort of what distracted him. Where I don't think he ever really put.
You could really see his liberal thumbprint in Kate and Leopold.
I think that you could see his liberal thumbprint on all the rest of the parts of his life, where every movie was like, how do I make more money in order to do other stuff?
Sure.
Which is not a knock. Half of us are Democrats here, so I appreciate that all that he's done. But
half
I do
of
think
us are
that
demon rats.
Don't. You're the one that's in disarray right now. It is not me. But I do think that distracted him enough where I think that the passion left at a certain point for filmmaking, for redoing genres or whatever he said. You called him a journeyman. That's also sometimes called director for hire, whereas we have everything ready but the director.
Right.
So we'll go get a Roger Donaldson or somebody who just comes in and shoots real quick. Feels like that, but there is something different where he always had the power and the pull to pick his job.
Yeah.
if you look at the IMDb, it seems very director for hire.
Because I do think why I like him is he is subtle as a director. It's not always successful, but I think he's always like, how can I fuck with the genre a little? And not in a huge turn it on its head man way, but like to push it. I think he knows the beats of his genres.
And I don't think it is he's never been postmodern. I don't think
that's what I
don't think that he's ever
I call it Deadpoolian because I'm a moron.
I don't think he's ever trying to comment on the genres before necessarily as much as take the genres from his youth and update them for now.
Mm-hmm.
So like and Spielberg has done this as well, but I do think Spielberg has more commentary to say.
But I think it's Spielberg, it's who's Spielberg lesser? Forrest Gump?
Zemeckis.
Thank you. Robert Zemeckis and Rob Reiner. It wasn't until this weekend that I started to see this theory of these guys.
The family tree.
And it makes Spielberg is clearly papa. I would never have said this before. For a while, and the further we get in life, the easier it is to say, I don't like Robert Zemeckis.
Uh-huh.
For a while, that was like, don't say it. I would never be like, I think I'm a Reiner guy. But I'm a Weimar Reiner.
It's so bold of you to admit that because you don't see that much of it. Another guy that might be on your tree somewhere is Ron Howard, who
Ronnie Howard
has the least amount to say about the genre. I think every time.
Yes.
I think with stuff like Princess Bride, which is obviously an old-fashioned updated movie. I remember A Few Good Men ends with Kathy, Tom Cruise, walking out of the courtroom, and then the end in cursive appears as if like that's just To Kill a Mockingbird.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are colorizing the movies of your youth.
For sure.
Right? To remake them. Not remixing, though.
No. Spielberg is a master DJ.
Right. I think that if you look at Raiders, even things as small as Harrison Ford like rolling his eyes or failing or not being the perfect hero.
Right.
That's enough of a remix to me where like he's doing something different.
He stumble fucks his way through Raiders.
Right. I mean, everybody knows the thing about like if he wasn't in the movie, then everything would have happened the same. But like that is right there. That's postmodern, right?
Yes.
Like that's a hero for our times. It's just, oh, what are you, a white dude?
You think you're important.
Go ahead.
You don't matter.
But yeah, so the thing that all of that being said, the Rob Reiner-iest moment of the movie is one of our most talked about moments tonight, and that is Nigel coming on stage. Because I do think that there is a studio system, old school Hollywood need in Rob Reiner's bones to have that happen.
And because of who, not just his Hollywood papa is in Spielberg, but who his real papa is in Carl Reiner. And then as a kid, he was on The Family. Like this shit is soaked in, and I bet he does think about a lot of it, but I think a lot of it is just second nature. Well, this is what has to happen. Even in a subversive movie like we're making, well, this is how you end a fucking movie.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's where the separation comes too, like we talked about before, is that Reiner would go on to get less of the subversive.
Yes.
And Christopher Guest would go on to get less of the Hollywood feel-goodiness.
Yes.
That's where they sort of separated. All right, so I forgot to award points. They all go to me, buddy. Yikes! I'm going to award myself
for you.
25 points.
It's a real Nigel kind of move.
Compliment.
Call me Vic Savage on keyboards.
I think you're the guy who. This is how you've always treated me. You're the guy who comes in, walks to the room, and we're all like, "Hey, what's up, buddy?" Because we used to be friends, but you refuse to even recognize us.
Oh, the young hot kid?
Yes.
Who's like, oh, we're at the same hotel? No.
Yeah, and the teacher from Head of the Class is his manager, and he's like...
Head of the Class? Fuck. My nose bled remembering that. It's been so long.
Head of the Class, who played the bigger kid in the back of the class. Do you remember?
Was it you?
Cool joke. That was Dan Schneider, who went on to take over Nickelodeon.
Oh, no!
And...
what's that dot called? Re-rec?
Headlight in the light.
The darkest of times.
So yeah, it all comes back around, doesn't it? That J-Lo is responsible for everything. You know, he had a foot-shaped pool.
Yeah.
And he said it was because the Nickelodeon logo.
Yeah, I told that to my wife, and she went, I don't get why he's bad. I went, oh, should I have led with all the other stuff?
Guys, watch. That's a documentary that is not about rock or mocking. So those are two separate things. A documentary so important we cannot remember its name, but Dan Schneider, star head of the class.
Hey, Dan Schneider, what are you doing?
Mike.
Messed up stuff with child actors' feet.
I think that everyone, including Greg heads, are going to agree that this is probably one of the best shows about one of the best movies of all time.
I, for one, think the Greg heads get it.
Yeah. They're in on this. Like, Greg heads don't have pools in the shape of feet.
No.
They have the pools in the shape of Greg's head.
Yes.
Like a normal person.
Like a normal person who's into normal sexual things.
This is typically when, we talk about how the movie's going to do in the future. We talk about the winner, which was me, 25-0.
Embarrassing.
For you.
For you.
For sure for you.
For mostly you.
Most of the time that people say embarrassing for you, they are pointing 4 fingers directly back at them. Yeah.
That's a weird way to point. I gotta clip my nails.
But I'm gonna ask you this instead. Guaranteed, rock solid, lock on a Moody nomination.
Yes.
What are we going through here?
Musical moment.
Okay. And what is it?
Even though there's 2. Even though it's
there's
neither
15.
There's 15, but it's not my song, which is a legit great song to listen to. Tonight we're gonna rock it tonight. Which reminds me, there's a band more people should listen to called White Reaper. Bad band name this day and age. Come on. But they had an album called The Greatest American Band in America. No, The Greatest American Band in the World. That's what actual better joke than my bad memory. And it reminded me of that. It's Stonehenge or it's The Pod. Those 2 things really fucking rule.
What do you mean The Pod?
They come out and this is why I like punk.
Do you mean the time where
their
Michael
Greg
McKean
gets stuck in
and
a pod?
Press for Guest come out and then nothing else happens?
Yes.
That's all I remember.
Nothing else happens. To the point they bring a blowtorch to melt the plastic. All of that is so fucking funny.
I will give Harry Shearer's probably best moment is coming out to get his accolades from the crowd and the song is over and
And then
everything's done.
it bites his arm. And it's why there's a lot of reasons part of is where and how I grew up. I like punk more than this kind of theatrical stuff but the ways you can fail if you really care and take yourself seriously and have this kind of stagecraft.
And what's terrible for all of these bands, and I want to address all of these bands right now that are current, past, future. People would rather see it go wrong than see it go right.
In that scene and in the Stonehenge scene, if I was in the crowd, it would be the night of my life. In my wedding vows 8 years later, I would not talk about my wife. I would talk about the moment I saw this happen.
Yeah, I think that Christopher Guest has a shot at Best Actor because right now he's running up against Emilio Estevez. So,
he's a sheen, Ryan.
He is a sheen. But yeah, I would say, is it possible, and this has happened before with Moody's, that there are 2 movies nominated for all 6 nominations?
Yes.
And Spinal Tap just has 3 or 4
There's
of them.
a lot of shitheads in this movie.
Oh, shitheads too.
Duos?
Best duo, Christopher Guest and Michael McKean, because there was nobody else in their band. I'm just going to keep...
There's 3 other men in their band, but you're only insulting one.
I am. I do want to direct that specifically to the keyboard player. Mike, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know if you're going to be back next week, but we do have some parting prizes because you did lose. We have the home version of Movie of the Year, which you could play at your house.
I'm going to be Ryan.
Oh, really? Can you give us a little taste of that?
I guess I win.
That's embarrassing for you.
No, what did you say? Anybody, if you say that, what's happening? Look at 4 of your fingers, friend.
Shit. I have 8 fingers right now pointing right at me because I'm giving you thumbs up because of how embarrassing that is for you. That is Mike. My name is Ryan. Such an exciting season ahead. But please, and hopefully the goal is to not just have a second panelist, but often a third panelist on this show.
We'll see.
We're going to try to have some guests. Christopher style. And until then, keep watching those movies.